Hello, hello. It has been a minute for sure. Happy solstice, December, Capricorn, Winter Solstice if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Um, yeah, there's a lot going on per usual. Mars is, of course, retrograde. It'll be retrograde for about 3 or 4 months. It's December 21st. Currently, the sun is newly in Capricorn, which marks the winter solstice, as well as Capricorn season. The moon is in Virgo at 24 degrees, opposed by Sun and Mercury, and it is a sun hour. And yeah, this is a big turning point. I feel like this is not your typical um, Capricorn solstice, winter solstice. And the solstices and the equinox celestial events are when we hit the cardinal seasons. So Capricorn, Cancer, uh, Aries, Libra, not in that order. Aries, and then Cancer, like in zodiacal order. Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. And each of those signs mark the beginning of a new season. And that's when the sun literally changes direction in the sky. So like cardinal signs, they change directions for us. So we can feel like an upswing in our efforts, and it's a gradual process. Capricorn is a slow and steady kind of energy, and like solstice, the day of solstice, it's the longest night of the year, and it takes a while for, I mean, the way I can kind of imagine it is the sun taking a while to like turn back around. It hits the Tropic of Capricorn, which, like, if you look at the globe, it's, you know, it hits the southern hemisphere latitudinally, and then it comes back and we start to gain more light. And so it is kind of symbolic of our efforts and our energy and our vitality, if you want to, use that as a metaphor, as far as like the solstice, Capricorn solstice, regaining light again. So we're regaining our efforts, our ambition. We have more discipline. Capricorn is a very like studious sign. It's like very kind of nose to the grind type of energy. It's that energy. The goat, the goat wants to climb the mountain and get to the top and achieve and acquire and just keep climbing. And it's connected to legacy too. So we're starting to rebuild a brand new legacy, like a legacy that has never existed before, that we never thought we could actually pursue because of programming or suppressed beliefs, or just like being told that there's only one way to survive in this world. And so we're learning that that is not true. So this is, I mean, I consider this like a soul grown legacy. So we're rebuilding a legacy that's based on our true, authentic self. And it's kind of like this unfolding and cultivation of this precious seed. This is something that we are starting to feel aligned with. Like, we know this for ourselves. We are shedding a lot of the programming and the conditioning that we've been subject to over generations. We're like breaking generational patterns so that we can really step into our true selves. And there's like so many shifts that are happening for 2025, and the signature chart for the solstice. So each season, so the winter solstice, the spring equinox, the summer solstice, and the fall equinox, they all have their own kind of signature chart that kind of tells a story of how the next season is, going to play out, or what to expect. And for the next 3 months until spring equinox in March, it's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a grand mutable square in the sky. So all the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, they're all the mutable signs. And there are planets in each of those signs that will square each other. So these are aspects of tension. And Saturn is in Pisces, and Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. So it kind of dictates well, it's kind of like that guiding energy that will kind of, yeah, kind of dictate what we need to do in order to make the best of this season. And Saturn in Pisces in a mutable sign is making squares to Jupiter in Gemini and Mercury in Sagittarius. The cool thing about that is that Jupiter in Gemini and Mercury in Sagittarius are in a mutual aspect, so they are in one another's sign. So Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. So it's like they've exchanged cliff notes on each other's signs, and so they're on the same page. They're far away from each other. It's not like the most comfortable place for each of those planets to be in, but they have the support of being in that mutual reception. And then, you know, every month the moon is going to be in Virgo, and for the solstice, the moon was in Virgo. I think it currently still is at this very moment. Yeah, that's right. It's in 24 degrees. So I think in the next 5 or 6 hours it'll be in Libra. But for the signature of the solstice, this square is kind of representative of how this next season is going to go. So mutable signs are all about changes, options. You know, if you know any of these signs, Sagittarius, Virgo, Gemini, or Pisces, there's always that tendency of offering, you know, additional options, whether you like it or not. You know, you try to narrow down a decision, you know, whether it's choosing where to go to eat, or if you're, you know, it could be anything. They're always considering other options, or, you know, weighing the best options. Mercury and Gemini, Virgo and Gemini tend to approach decision making with like details. Give me the facts, show me the data. And then they, like, you know, because they want to either, one, Gemini wants to experience, you know, like the opposite, the polar end of the spectrum, and then Virgo wants, you know, to narrow down the best, most efficient, optimal decision. And Sagittarius and Sagittarius and Pisces are Jupiter ruled, and so they're kind of like very optimistic. They're, you know, adventurous and hopeful, and they're a lot more, I would say, go with the flow. You know, they're pretty accepting of, well, Pisces is a lot more like accepting of what decision is decided. So they're like, you know, whatever you want, you know, it'll be fine. And then Sagittarius is like the ambitious kind of energy of doing all the things. Like, we can do it all, and like make all these plans and overbook, and, you know, sometimes the details can fall by the wayside. So Sagittarius end up maybe like double booking, or you know, just like over planning. And that's the kind of energy that the next 3-4 months can feel like, because we have this square with Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. So there's like a lot of options, a lot of information that we're consuming. There's so many sides of a story that we can either connect with or not, or detach from, or, you know, we just kind of like observe and not absorb. And then Mercury in Sagittarius, and Jupiter is retrograde at the moment. It won't go direct until February, I believe. And then Mercury just went direct a week or so ago, and in the sign of Sagittarius, it's like detail lacking. So then Sagittarius is connected to dogma and the beliefs that have been kind of like ingrained and are a little more difficult to I don't know, like convince people of what is actually factual. But then the Saturn in Pisces wants us to align and like use our spiritual discernment to really, you know, figure out what we need to pay attention to, what we need to give our attention to or not, because our energy is precious right now. We have a lot of new adjustments to get used to go with the flow with, but like it is shaking up our foundations. And I mean, I consider like the next foreseeable season to be like a season of squares. You know, we have this mutable square with with Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn. Saturn and Jupiter have been in this like kind of ongoing square for a while, and this is the second Jupiter-Saturn square, and the next one, and so I think that is actually perfecting on Christmas Eve, so the 24th. But the interesting thing about that particular square that's going on at the same time is where the sun and moon will be. So the moon is moving into Libra on the 22nd, so that'll be a closing square with the sun. So when the moon is in Libra and the sun is in Capricorn, we've got this kind of moment of tension between our emotions and how we want to approach or execute or, you know, play out our ambitions, or, you know, what we are deciding to do. And so our emotions and our actions can, you know, come to this point of tension where, okay, this is the final decision. This is like, you know, this is the last straw, and this is what's going to happen, kind of thing. It's those kind of closing square decisions. At the same time, the Saturn-Jupiter square is going on, so it's like that double square of tension where we are kind of coming to this breaking point where we are feeling compelled to make a decision that is in our best interest, you know, where we are aligned and we know it in our heart and in our gut that this is the best for us. And the moon is going to be conjunct the south node tomorrow. So right now the nodes are at 2 degrees Aries. The north node is at 2 degrees Aries and the south node is at 2 degrees Libra. The south node is where we let go of things, release things that no longer serve us. It's like the shadow side of that sign, so the shadow sides of Libra. And with the moon at that same degree, we are feeling into what we really need to let go of. And the sun at 2 degrees Capricorn is squaring those nodes, so we're kind of, you know, at this choice point where we are, you know, faced with this decision of whether to go toward the Aries North Node, which is self-reliance, independence, boldness, courage, you know, bravery, entrepreneurship, leadership. So there's that choice, or staying in the past, staying with, you know, what's, you know, been comfortable. But I mean, with a square, with a T-square, with the sun squaring the nodes, it's not a comfortable place. So this is a, you know, challenging choice point for us, especially with the moon, with the south node. But the cool thing is the ruler of Aries, which is where our north node is, the ruler of Aries is Mars, and Mars is making a trine to the north node. So they're making a harmonious, you know, aspect. There's a harmonious agreement between Aries and Leo. Mars is in Leo. It's retrograde at the moment. So this is this internal focus of where we want to put our energy, you know, where our creativity, where our passion lies, and that's supportive of moving into our north node in Aries. And so the square with Jupiter and Saturn, it's like this impulse to expand our knowledge, you know, whether we are sharing knowledge or learning, you know, taking in knowledge. There's a pullback that Saturn in Pisces is asking us to take. So it's like, you know, Pisces is all about retreating, you know, making sure that you're energetically balanced. You know, you want to preserve your energy. Saturn in Pisces is a lot of lessons in preserving your energy, protecting your energy, and making sure that you're not overextending yourself, and that you're utilizing and, you know, applying those spiritual practices that help you, you know, ground into yourself, and like helps you make sure that your energy is not being influenced negatively and being like pulled away from your own inner source, I guess you could say. And so that's over the weekend, and then Christmas Eve is on the 24th, and that is when the perfection between Jupiter and Saturn happens. So that's when the moon is going to move into Scorpio, and it will square Pluto. There is that tension, but the moon will be in a cooperative aspect, a creative cooperative aspect with the sun. So moon in Scorpio and the sun in Capricorn will be in agreement with, like, how to take charge and, lay down some rules and boundaries. So that's on the 24th. But yeah, so for the entire season of winter, so from now until spring equinox, we have this signature of a grand mutable square. And squares, I kind of use the analogy of a dahlia, where it kind of does this expand and contract kind of movement. If you were to look at a time-lapse video of a dahlia, it like does this expansion and retraction. So it's kind of like that pattern of growth that we all have. Dahlias, flowers, they're all of the earth, and so humans, being of the earth too, we have that same sort of expansion and contraction. And it's kind of like labor pains. You kind of like, when you're doing those breathing exercises, you're expanding, and then you like contract. It's like that, this push-pull, kind of like breathing in and breathing out. And over the course of 2025, all of the major generational planets, the slow-moving planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn will be doing that same thing before they move all into the next sign. And Uranus and Saturn and Neptune will be moving into Yang signs, and so Uranus will be moving into Gemini, and Saturn and Neptune will be moving into Aries. Pluto is already in Aquarius, which is also a Yang sign, and so Pluto in Aquarius will be trining Uranus in Gemini, because they're both air signs, and then Saturn and Neptune will be in Aries, and so they will both be sextile Pluto and Uranus. And so this kind of like expansion and contraction over the entire 2025 will be that adjustment period of new energies. Like, all of these planets are going to be going over the 29 anaretic degree, and 29 degrees is a degree of completion, finishing, closure, ending. So tying up loose ends, making sure everything is kind of set the way we want to leave that particular sign before we move into the next sign. And so there can be this kind of feeling of destabilization, instability. It's a big transition into the next sign, and it's not just one planet moving into the next sign. It is three planets moving into new signs, new elements, and like that doesn't happen very often. They each have different like cycles of when they move into the next sign, and so for them to all be shifting into new signs within weeks of each other is like the universe's intelligence that is orchestrating this energy for us in the most insane ways. Like Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries is like the spiritual hero, spiritual leader, healers, like healers coming into their leadership roles. And there can be this movement of people really wanting to ground their spiritual aspirations into like practical steps, like whether it's taking certification like Akashic record reading. I recommend everybody get their like Akashic records read. There's so much validation there, and it explains a lot of the difficult, challenging relationships that you can be going through, and it lines up with the astrology. And so it's beautiful to have all these different modes becoming more accepted, so that all of us can come into this like realm of acceptance of ourselves and one another. You know, first you learn about yourself and you accept yourself, and then, you know, it just opens up this huge world of opportunities, and you're able to move through life a lot lighter and with more grace and joy for not just yourself but for other people around you. And so once you learn that about yourself, you're able to appreciate the people in your life. And then, you know, like, it's hard not to want to, like, share your experience with, you know, maybe people who you are in difficult relationships with, and encouraging them to, you know, look into doing the same. I mean, it's not something that you want to force or, you know, like, make them feel guilty about, because everybody is on their own timeline. It's whether, you know, it's totally up to them when they are ready to receive healing, you know. And, like, some people are very resistant the more you encourage them. So that's another thing with Saturn and Pisces, is that you have to really use your discernment of how far you go with sharing your information. I think that's a big part of that Jupiter and Gemini. And it's in a T-square. Saturn is in a T-square to Mercury in Sagittarius and Jupiter and Gemini. And it's like that fine line of being too pushy, or, you know, oversharing, or like, yeah, just pushing your agenda. Some people may not be ready for that. Like, there's people that are on different sensitivity levels, and so we have to use our emotional intelligence to gauge, like, how far to go, like, who's ready to hear this information. And I think that's the thing about Mars and Leo too, is really learning how we want to be of service, and, like, really put ourselves out there. Like, what are we putting out there? Is it useful? Is it necessary? You know, is it useful, necessary? I forget what the third thing is. But Mars being retrograde, we're, like, going inside to figure out, like, what is the best use of our creativity. But whatever we come up with, it's going to be in the realm of like, healing. And we just, like, put ourselves out there, put it out there, and whoever is called to listen to it or take it in, you know, it's there for the taking. We're not pushing it on anybody. It is there for anyone to divinely, you know, like, come across, or synchronistically, you know, have it fall in their lap. Whoever is open and willing to connect with that information, or that art, or that music, or that song, or whatever it is there to receive it. And it's like a medicine that is there for the taking. And so what is your medicine, I think, is a big part of this, like, the season of squares. We're trying to apply this trial and error approach. And that's another thing with, I mean, for this foreseeable future, we're, like, experimenting with things that we have never experienced before. So all these big shifts, like Uranus into Gemini, and then Neptune and Saturn into Pisces, and also Pluto in Aquarius. We're kind of, like, already feeling those new changes and seeing how all the innovations are playing out. And so these are, you know, trial and error phases. We're, like, experimenting. We can't, like, be attached to any one thing for, like, too heavily, because anything can change. Like, there's a lot of big changes that are, you know, to be expected. A lot of changes, and a lot of unexpected events and outcomes. And, you know, the things that we have been maybe programmed to believe that are not savory, you know, like, whatever you've been disgusted by, or, you know, like, there's all kinds of things out there in the world right now that are, you know, of course, there's disheartening things and disappointing outcomes, but it's up to us to hold the frequency of hope and positivity to pull our collective consciousness out of this doom and gloom. You know, if we have a roof over our head, and, you know, we are in a warm and cozy bed, and we are feeding ourselves, then we have that privilege to hold the frequency for those who don't have the space to be able to they have other things to worry about. Their homes have been destroyed in like some sort of unnecessary destruction, and the industrial war monster machine has been doing their thing for who knows how long, and so they're victims. We can't play the victim if we are in our warm home, like having this delicious meal. Like, we have to hold the frequency to pull, like, mindfully and consciously, like, pull those energies out of that doom and gloom, and rather than apologizing for being optimistic, like, I understand the election wasn't the outcome that a lot of people wanted, but especially as astrologers, like, we are able to look at the astrology and see, the potentials of the outcomes, and expect the unexpected is Uranus, and Uranus is making so many significant aspects to so many other significant placements, and so we have to like keep that in mind. The election has already passed. There's nothing we can do about it. If it's already happened and the outcome is what it is, then there's got to be something about this President-elect Trump, who is an archetype. He's symbolic of something that is, a catalyst that is going to change the direction of the United States, like the lives of Americans, and not just Americans, but everybody, because of course America has been kind of like this powerhouse. The America's sun is at the Sirius degree, Sirius, so like the big dog star Sirius, and so yeah, it's been, the country has been a big player in global relationships, and so there's going to be this turning point that, sure, Donald Trump is, the president-elect, but he is the catalyst for this turning point. We can look at it like that. And there was a quote that I pulled out. I tried this bibliomancy technique the other day, and out of this Rosicrucian book. And the page that I landed on, or it was like a whole passage that I read I don't know how many pages, like 10 pages, but the quote was, I do not give you peace, I give you a sword, or something like that. And it was basically explaining how, in order to achieve peace and harmony, we have to utilize our sword to kind of clear the path. Like, we can't walk a path unless it's clear, and we can't clear the path without a sword. And that's kind of like what we're doing. We're, South Node in Libra is letting go of these codependent relationships, the shadow sides of Libra, even like the aspects that are connected with justice, like the corruption in our judicial systems. Those relationships are being severed, and there's unfortunate events that are playing out, like the CEO of the healthcare company. It's kind of it's a messed up kind of event, of course nobody condones shooting somebody in the back, but again, he, what is his name, Luigi Mangione, is symbolic of a collective energy. And I think it was Celeste, Astrology by Celeste Brooks, who, kind of broke down his chart, and he has, Mars on his North Node. I haven't even looked at his chart, but the events that played out was something that was meant for him to happen. It was meant to happen, and he was the kind of archetype for this sort of turning point, and this kind of in your face event that represents a lot of different things that are going on in the world, not just the United States. Him having this back problem that the healthcare company did not they didn't approve some sort of surgery for his back problem to be healed, or something along those lines. And so there's so many examples of his story that people can relate to, and so that's why, in a messed up kind of way, people are celebrating what he did. I mean, it's kind of, yeah, it's messed up, but then if you zoom out and consider how corrupt all of the systems in the U.S. Have been operating, and really just siphoning our energy, our money, our creativity, and then also considering like all of the innocent people, all of the children's lives all over the world who have been sacrificed for this war machine. It's a lot of things that are coming to the surface, and so there's going to be more of that over the next year. But yeah, it's a lot of processing, like emotional processing, mental processing. And so, if you need to take a rest, like, don't feel guilty for calling into work, like, don't feel guilty for taking a mental health day, like, there is more to life than profit. And we've been programmed to believe that profit is the main goal, but that has been a false strategy to keep us from our creativity. So just keep that in mind, and consider your joy, and connect with your inner child, and connect with your animals. There's so many things to be grateful for. All you have to do is look up and pay attention to nature and the stars, and even the kids, they have so much profound wisdom to share. I mean, there's a lot of reincarnation that's coming to the surface, and it's wild to see how brilliant these kids are. They are being born with these crazy significant aspects in their chart that are happening, that are playing out right now. And so the future that they have, that they're going to be part of that leadership movement that pulls us out of this dogmatic, outdated kind of trance that we've been in, so that we can actually enjoy and experience and create heaven on earth. So there's a lot to look forward to and be grateful for. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you enjoy the company that you're with, whether it is your family or your friends or your animals or just yourself. The stars connect to the heavens, and know that you're never alone. And hopefully that was helpful, and please do reach out if you're curious about what kind of healing powers you have, because all of the hardships and challenges that we all go through, it is meant to make us stronger, of course, and also bring us into our healing leadership. And this is represented by Chiron, which is the wounded healer. That's one aspect to look at. That's one position to look at, and how Chiron and other asteroids as well are playing out in your chart. And the struggles are all for a purpose, and we will be able to see the fruits of those labors, I guess you can call it, within a few years. This is like a big shift of major quantum leaps. So we just have to hold the frequency, and know that the changes that are underway, or the decisions that have been made for good reason. If it's happened, there's no need to have any regrets about it. It happened for good reason, and we have to trust the universe and the intelligence that the universe brings, to know that everything is orchestrated in our favor. There's always a reason for everything. How cliche is that? But yeah, the universe, God works in mysterious ways. The universe is always conspiring in our favor. Like, all of those cliches are true, and there's no point in holding on to regrets. It just weighs you down and doesn't allow you to like explore the possibilities. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. So hopefully I hear from you. Let me know how you're doing, and yeah, hopefully the Aries and Scorpio, whether you're a Scorpio or Aries sun, moon, rising, midheaven. My midheaven is Scorpio, and the ruler of Aries and Scorpio is Mars, and with Mars being retrograde, it's kind of like it's kind of like a weird, surreal experience to be an astrologer, experiencing the transits, the astrology, and also sharing it, talking about it, because it's like, okay, I have to listen to my own advice, but then also I have this, feeling or compulsion to share it. And I mean, I think that's also part of that Jupiter-Saturn square is, sharing this information and taking in information, all these rabbit holes that I'm going down, learning about all of the backwards systems that we have unwittingly participated in. And so, like, on that end, I'm like trying to, I guess, reverse those contracts, reclaim sovereignty. A lot of people around the world are doing that. But yeah, it's surreal to live this astrology and share it and talk about it. But it's a passion of mine. So yeah, hopefully you resonate, and hopefully I see you in the next video. Mars in Leo retrograde is it's not the easiest thing, and it will go into Cancer on January 6th. So more on that in another video. All right, and everybody have a good holiday. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. Everybody stay safe and take all the best care. All right. Ciao.